Здравствуйте, дорогие участники. У нас конференция начинается. Прошу готовиться. Я буду говорить по-английски. У нас конференция идет на 5 языках. Французский, английский, русский, китайский. И еще, если я помню хорошо, испанский. So, I am Khalil Mohsen, the conference moderator. For the first session in the 7th International Scientific Interdisciplinary Conference on Research and Methodology, Functional Aspects of Intercultural Communication, Translation and Interpreting Issue. I'd like to introduce you, our conference organizer and chair, Marina Petrova.
Dear colleagues and friends, allow me to warmly thank the organizers of this important conference for giving me the privilege of welcoming and addressing you all. For me, it is an honor and pleasure. Our conference organizers are Institute of Foreign Languages of RUDN University, Russia, Faculty of Philology of Moscow State Lomonosov University, Russia, Faculty of Translation and Interpreting of the University of Granada, Spain, Russian Center of the University of Granada, Spain, Higher Institute of Languages in Tunis of the University of Carthage, Uninote University, Paraguay, Moscow State Linguistic University, Russia, Institute of Education, University of Reading, United Kingdom. Dear participants and listeners, I would also like to thank you for having brought together in Microsoft Teams to discuss one of the main current challenges worldwide, which are, without doubt, intercultural communication, language and identity. Я еще раз напоминаю, что рабочими языками нашей конференции являются русский, английский, испанский, французский и китайский. С удовольствием будем слушать вас на любом из рабочих языков. Халил?
Да, тогда просто начинаем именно вспоминать, какие темы у нас. Должно быть 12 пока в этой секции. Но будем знать, кто у нас из участников, они готовы и здесь находятся с нами.
Да, и хотелось бы, чтобы мы напомнили про регламент.
Да. Я по-английски буду читать имена, и кто у нас здесь, пускай поднимает руку, пожалуйста, виртуальную.
Да, рука у нас находится наверху в правой части. Нарисованы два человечка, сам чат и рука. Если вы здесь, поднимите ручку, пожалуйста.
И можно, конечно, набрать тоже ваши имена через переписки. Лариса Талалова. Деви Катарина.
Вместе с Ларисой, да? Ага, окей.
Дарья Олейникова. Отлично. Ирина Казакова. Конечно, она с Аленой Грудимовой.
Окей, next.
Михаил Загирняк. Олег Ахошин.
Here.
Елизавета Невежина. Елена Шумикова
is here.
Okay. Victoria Машушина.
Okay, she's here.
Sara Tabatabai.
No, she's not here.
Okay. Igor Shkroptak.
Yes.
Alina Zagrebelnaya. And Andrei Levitsky.
Okay, right.
Okay, so I understand that we will be listening to some of you. Maybe it will take around 10 and 15 minutes to talk about our subject for every one of you. And after the subject, we will debate like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I hope our session will be helpful.
И первое мы приглашаем, значит, кто мне прислал свои презентации, я буду вам открывать, вы просто мне говорите, какой слайд будет последовать. И первую мы приглашаем Ларису Талалову.
Hello, but I need the screen for sharing my presentation, please.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Excuse me.
Can you see it now?
Can you see? Can you see your presentation?
Yeah, maybe.
I see her presentation.
Okay, right.
Just a moment. It is not mine. Shall we?
Larisa Talalova is here. Devi Katarina.
Yes. Yes. But it is not okay. Okay, good.
If you have the other.
No.
I can change.
It is okay. Yes, it is okay.
Right.
I should talk when we change the pictures. Am I right? You will. Okay, good. Good day, dear colleagues. My name is Larisa Talalova, and I am from State University of Management, Moscow. And I'm a lecturer of academic exchange program, and some of my students made some reports. These are the final works of the semester. And Devi Katarina Vatschulte, just now she is participating in another conference, also in the People's Friendship University of Russia, this very moment at another section at the conference, youth section at the conference, which is devoted to the migration and the identity. That is why I tried to reproduce our collaboration, but we changed our topic because she tells about her story, her private story. It is announced in our program. I say just a few words because it is closely connected to that very conference. She was born in Malaysia, but she is grown up in Germany, being the child of interracial couple, German and Malaysian. And that is why we try to reproduce this very material to another conference. But it is another topic we want to reproduce. It is also, the topic is the same because it is adapting to cultures or to be or not to be in the host society. And it will be the story of the Jews, precisely the Russian Jews abroad. And the sample will be the Great Britain, the United Kingdom. It will be the sample of our illustration. And we have 3 criteria for navigation, how the Russian Jews pans out in terms of, first of all, preserving their mother tongue, B, sticking to their home culture, and C, is distributed into 3 portions where the Russian Jews choose to adopt the home culture, to integrate, partially or fully integrate, and fully assimilate. The next, please. The next slide, please. Maybe something wrong. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, but
okay. Sorry, maybe something wrong. Okay, the next, please. Yes, the next one, please. And we start from the mechanism of the Russian-speaking communities in the United Kingdom, both Jewish or else, it doesn't matter, choose to reproduce their mother tongue language, their culture, within another ethnicity. The tendency for preserving their language, the language they communicate with other fellow Russian speakers, as opposed to English. The best illustration for it is the so-called Limud conference. Limud conference, from Hebrew, it is limud, to learn from Hebrew. What it is not a conference in its proper sense of words, surely. It is a meeting which has taken place all over the world, and very frequently when Jewish people can meet and share all their interests, from religion component up to everyday life, music, theater, drama, and etc. And it gathers 2,000 or 3,000 people each, and it is sometimes a weekend conference, sometimes a week. And it is the old story already. It has begun in 60s, and it is the origin of it is in Great Britain, and then it became a franchise, and now it is all over the world indeed, and with many franchises. When we may speak about the Limud for the former Soviet Union, for former Soviet Union republics, which is organized here in Moscow, and then again all over the world. Moreover, there appeared the Limud former Soviet Union Europe. It means that the Russian experts who live all over the world don't come to Moscow, for example, to meet. They do it now in the territories. This is the extraterritorial mechanism. The first Limud FCU Europe has taken place in London in 2017. Now it is spread around the world, in Israel, Western Europe. The last one was in Vienna, in Austria, a year ago, some months ago, sorry. The next, please. Please, the next slide. Maybe something is wrong.
Yes, yes, we have a little problem.
Okay. And all in all, we may speak on strong preference for using Russian at home or within the community. Otherwise, perhaps more mainstream English-speaking counterpart will suffice. And we have other two noteworthy trends. Jewish or else, again, it doesn't matter. They choose to learn the host language to a degree high enough not only to work alongside with the locals, but also to be able to socialize with them. And another trend is the Russian speakers. Now we have no presentation at all. Maybe I try to do my presentation. To my mind, well, okay, without any presentation, because I don't see it. I do it without presentation. And okay, the next, please. The next, please.
Other problem? Other problem? Other problem?
Let me, okay. We may compare the situation with the Italian migrants. I mean, the Italian and the Russian-speaking Jews. A very contrasting case for Italian migrants in the UK, and they have the estimated number of 233,000 Italian-born residents in the United Kingdom, with under 10 Italian nurseries and schools present in London. As to the estimated 70,000 strong Russian-speaking community, can count on the same number of Russian nurseries and schools in London. It is also just under 10. Consequently, Russian speakers are almost 4 times more likely to teach their children their mother tongue language, mother tongue, outside home than the Italians. The next slide, please. As to or a similar trend is likely to be found with the Russian-speaking Jewish community, with some slight variations of Jewish nurseries and schools in the UK. They are about 20, and they offer programs with a prevalent Hebrew component. Therefore, when a Russian Jewish parent chooses to send his child to a Hebrew school, Russian is naturally going to be less present in the child's education unless additional Russian classes were taught to them on extracurricular basis. The next, please. All in all, the Russian Jewish culture is somewhat twofold. On one hand, the Russian Jews are Russian, on the other, they are Jewish. And to understand the dichotomy, and why the dichotomy is, we will require to add language into again. The next, please. The first question we would analyze whether a given culture relies on language, and if so, whether that culture dies out in places where the language associated with it dies out. The gut instinct would tell us that there is a direct correlation if there is a Russian community in Belfast that stops speaking Russian and adopts English as their home language and intra-communal language, chances are we will be talking about the end of the Russian culture in Belfast. Instead, they would consider themselves British and lose connection with the Russian culture forever. Some goes for descendants from Dutch, Polish, German, and etc. migrants in the UK. As the next, please. The Jewish culture, on the other hand, is nested in language to a much lesser degree. Since the Roman Jewish wars and to the establishment of the State of Israel, the Jews were dispersed around the world, and whether forcefully or willingly, they had to learn and fully incorporate the languages of the hosting nations, or develop their own languages that would be rooted from the local languages like Yiddish in German and Ladino in Spain. The next, please. That means that we may say that it doesn't matter how persistently the dominated languages invaded the Jewish communities in exile, we do not observe the Jewish identity in those places being fully erased as a result, even though the attempts have taken place. And the most recent example, it is the case of Yiddish in the 20th century. And we come to the discussion about adaptation, integration, or assimilation mechanism which works. If we keep in mind that it is the most important component for the Jewish life, it is the communal system and communal lifestyle. They preserve the identity despite the different situations, and they go beyond the ethno-linguistic cleansing. And following the Roman expulsion, the rabbis faced the task of adapting the principles of Judaism and rituals to the new reality, to nowadays. And we may say, the next, please. The next slide, please. And we may say that the two projects became important. The first one, to replace the now impossible sacrifices to nowadays to modern Jewish Christian liturgy, and the second one, to codify the Jewish law to everyday life, to contemporary life. The next, please. All in all, once launched by Judaism, learning together in any place possible, as opposed to keeping rituals in a certain place, would shape the contemporary Jewish life to these days. Today, we can talk about the global Jewish community as a large group, macro group of people, with a sense of togetherness, with a sense of being united. And this is the idea I introduced when I talked when we talked about limud. The next, please. And today, the Russian Jewish identity, with its duality, by all means, the product of the trends which we mentioned before. And there is some unique things. What is unique about the Russian Jews in nowadays? It is that the Russian Jewry has remained predominantly secular, which is naturally caused by the Soviet policies when religion was marginalized for decades. And it made the Russian component in the Jewish identity more prevalent and somewhat similar to its French counterpart. but nevertheless very different. The next, please. Different from the British Jews, I mean. The latter group hasn't seen a suppression of faith for 200 years, and neither have any attempts to make British Jews more British taken place for the same period. As a result, the Jews of the United Kingdom have remained both quite religious and very involved in the local secular context. And again, the pattern launched by the rabbis was covered earlier. Jewish life in Britain is thriving. For 250,000 Jews living in the UK have 30 and plus synagogues, 2 and plus schools, 3 cultural centers, and a developed network of Jewish dedicated business in London. For a Russian expat, it is a very comfortable situation. It is a good infrastructure for them. The next, please. And we come to our conclusion. We have partly covered the assimilation already when examples of the given culture fading away with its language were presented. It might be worth adding that in the case of the United Kingdom, the traditionally Christian European cultures are likely to assimilate within a few generations of the experts. Adoption, when we illustrated by the example of the Chinese migrants, it will be more appropriate. Language-wise, the migrants from China, the accent is strongly in favor of the mother tongue, at least as far as first-generation experts are involved. Moreover, there are several Chinatowns across the UK where street signage uses both English and variants of Chinese dialects, whereas Russian-speaking quarters do not manifest the same trait. The phenomena might serve as an indicator of home culture-oriented socializing choices among Chinese expats, despite the fact that Chinese immigration has a very good conditions for working and living in the UK. The next one. And the Jewish immigration in its turn shows the traits of integration, being fully incorporated in the fabric of the larger British society. British Jews have been sticking to the previous culture. To add the fact that the Jewish people have established a consistent presence in the UK more than a millennium ago, it appears as if the cultural pendulum is unlikely to move towards either the assimilation or indeed the adoption extremes for the Jews in Britain anytime soon. But the final question that we might face in the discussion is which way the Russian Jews will go. And the short answer is it depends. For some, being Russian is much more important than being Jewish. In that case, we will be likely to see assimilation taking place, however, at a slightly slower pace than when we talked about Italians. Those who consider themselves more Jewish than Russian will probably be more likely to join the mainstream Anglo-Jewry community, make a use of the resources of the British Jewry has to offer, and immerse into the British Jewry almost completely. Again, arguably at the expense of the Russian language and the culture it carries. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your creative report. Maybe someone has questions or comments.
Mm-hmm. It is not mine. It is our. It is our collaboration with our students.
Yeah, we understood.
they are from. It is the academic exchange program, and they are from different countries. You see, from Great Britain, the Netherlands, Germany, China, and etc. and etc. But the European countries. I enumerated them.
Mm-hmm.
It is not my, it is not me precisely.
Yeah, splendid, really splendid. Halil, you have some questions?
Yes, I have a question, please. Can a culture affect the language tongue of an ethnic group?
Not we discussed when it is non-ethnic, or whether it depends on ethnicity.
Because you said that Jewish in Russia feel like that they're in their country. So maybe the Jewish culture it's more like Russian culture.
Surely, it can't be. We can't compare the Russian Jews here in Russia with the Russian expats who live abroad. It is two different civilizations, two different worlds. Those who live, the Russian Jews who live here in Russia, they comprehend, being the overwhelming majority of them is secular. That is why they comprehend themselves more Russians than Jewish, and only a very small portion represent their Jewish identity, and a very small percent represents the religious component. And that is what we wanted to stress. And the opposite situation has taken place abroad. That is the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And we go on, and now we invite Daria Alinikova, People's Friendship University of Russia. Are you here?
Yes, good afternoon, dear colleagues.
Yeah.
Can you see me, hear me?
Yes, we.
Okay. Okay, so shall I start?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Alenikova Daria Viktorovna, and it's a great pleasure to take part in such an event. I deal with teaching lawyers intercultural professional communication. So my report is connected to this sphere of scientific research. It's not a secret that modern specialists who represent various spheres of knowledge brought to life new perspectives and new opportunities that they started exploring. No wonder that these new perspectives contributed both to companies and individuals' development. Such a rapid growth of commercial contacts and international corporate relations proved that professionals who are involved nowadays in intercultural communication require a qualitatively new level of training. And definitely it implies effective intercultural professional communication and interaction in any professional area. If we start analyzing recent events, we will come to the conclusion that representatives of different legal cultures are valuable participants of most business affairs at the international level. And I'd like to highlight that how successful the partners are in intercultural communication reflects their professional reputation in particular, and moreover reflects the company's reputation as a whole. Subsequently, lawyers who accompany all international negotiations have an essential role in resolving contradictions, and that helps them to mitigate the consequences of possible losses. Well, we have conducted the research, and modern scholars nowadays agree that lawyers face certain obstacles related to working in the intercultural dimensions, and it may seem quite surprising that such obstacles have various grounds, not only that could be based not only on verbal communication, but also including non-verbal communication. The trend that has been on now for recent decades is globalization, and this trend covers almost all spheres of our life, from social to political. And this large-scale process unites all cultures and results in the appearance of an unified communication and information space. The lawyers are no exception, and we are getting accustomed to the newly created conditions. And business partners and those who represent companies at the international level are likely to realize cultural differences. These differences that used to be partly hidden now reveal themselves in the framework of cultural interaction. And lawyers who are subsequently engaged in the international negotiations remark that such so-called pitfalls, if they are not considered, may lead to certain reputational and even financial difficulties. Nowadays, most business relations are accompanied by legal aid. And to make a contract, business partners hire qualified lawyers. Such legal support is designed to ensure a balance of interests. This balance of interests is regarded as a compromise due to the fact that representatives of different legal communities rely firstly on the national and cultural experience of the development of their own legal sphere. So in the current report, we are going to reveal and describe these difficulties that may create obstacles for the future intercultural professional communication. So to reveal these difficulties, we analyzed legal and legal practices on the following subject, and this analysis let us distinguish the following groups of difficulties. So they are terminological difficulties, formal difficulties, and psychological difficulties. It is evident that differences in terminological systems are considered challenging, but from my point of view, these difficulties are really they have been explored for several decades, and these difficulties are challenging, but so we know that these difficulties exist, and so we can also group these difficulties. The first group here is lack of notional correspondence in the system of the language, and it brings to the appearance of the layer of non-equivalent vocabulary. For instance, such legal notions as private nuisance, public nuisance, vicarious liability, strict liability, and the others. The second group is represented by the formal correspondence of the terms which culturally specific meanings do not coincide. For example, we see that there are different ideas behind the same notions. For example, administrative law in the Anglo-Saxon legal system and administrative law in the legal system of the Russian Federation. If we speak about the United Kingdom, administrative law here is roughly synonymous with public law. So there is a wide body of public administrative law that covers a broad range of fields of public administration, such issues as immigration, town planning, education, environment, and so on and so forth. Talking about administrative law in the Russian Federation, we can highlight that it sets the forms and extent of administrative liability for offenses and various aspects of Russian law, including, first of all, anti-monopoly legislation and some other types of minor offenses. The next group of difficulties are so-called formal difficulties in communication techniques and standard practices. For example, French lawyers admit the rule of law as the basis of legal practice. French lawyers act according to the prescriptions established by law. Meanwhile, Anglo-Saxon lawyers start their work first with a thorough analysis of the court decisions that reflect current practice and recent changes in the law. As a rule, they operate solely on the procedural rules. However, it may seem even surprising, but so it's not surprising when we see these differences and we face these differences talking about Anglo-Saxon law and talking about the Anglo-Saxon system of law and talking about the legal system of continental law. But so it's quite impressive that similar difficulties of socio-cultural, linguistic, and psychological nature could be faced by the lawyers who represent different countries of the same legal system. So, for instance, an English lawyer and an American lawyer, or even a German lawyer and a French lawyer. A French lawyer is likely to face obstacles working with a German lawyer due to some formal difficulties. And during our research, it was revealed that German and Swiss lawyers prefer article-by-article commentary, while in France, similar techniques also exist, but as a rule, they are used by practicing lawyers. And the last group of differences that may be quite challenging for the lawyers, and they may create some pitfalls in their intercultural professional communication, is the differences, like significant, even significant differences in lawyers' psychology. For example, English lawyers analyze previous court decisions since the leading role is given to precedent in the English legal system. Accordingly, an English lawyer studies practice, as we have already mentioned, while a Russian lawyer deals with the codes. In this regard, we talk about legal techniques that are seen as professional tools, skills, and abilities that allow lawyers to apply legal knowledge. To conclude, I would like to stress that intercultural professional communication nowadays plays a vital role for the representatives of many professions. And the quality of such communication is a significant factor of success, which can entail both positive and negative consequences. And these consequences must be considered, and moreover, they are to be foreseen by the representatives of the legal profession. And members of the legal community are definitely no exception in this regard. And as such, communication failures in intercultural legal communication can lead to serious international problems, heightening tensions among individuals, entities, and even states. Thank you for your attention.
Daria, you have highlighted very essential issues in legal language and intercultural communication techniques in law. And unfortunately, we have less time. And I want to advise to write your questions in chat. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And we go on and invite with great pleasure Oleg Hoshin. Just a moment.
Just a moment. Dear colleagues, for me it's a great pleasure and honor to take part in this scientific conference, and my report is devoted to the image of the United Kingdom in Boris Johnson's political discourse. So, do you hear me? Is everything fine?
It's okay.
Okay. So, my report is devoted to the metaphorical concepts that help to create the image of the United Kingdom in the political discourse of Boris Johnson. According to the cognitive theory of metaphor, the impact of metaphorical concepts on human consciousness is enormous because they are embedded in the conceptual mechanism of the human mind. Boris Johnson's rhetoric is a vivid example of the use of both universal and situational concepts, skillful substitution of concepts, and the widespread use of figurative means of the English language for utilitarian political purposes. The British Prime Minister's speeches help to understand the connection between metaphorical concepts and their specific context in which they are applied. So the main aim of my research is to understand the main metaphorical concepts of public speeches of Boris Johnson that reflect the political and ideological position of British leader, and the main themes of his political discourse are withdrawal of Great Britain from the EU and the identity of British people. As a result of the analysis of the texts of Boris Johnson's public speeches, it is possible to identify the characteristic features of his model of perception of the political reality of the United Kingdom, the motives behind his use of certain language, as well as the effectiveness of the impact on the mass audience. It was possible to reveal that Boris Johnson's political vocabulary has a pronounced integrative function, capable for rallying citizens to achieve a specific goal, to support the politician in his decision to complete Brexit and establish new principles of foreign policy. Political communication reflects the existing political reality, changes with it, and participates in its transformation. In 2016, the citizens of the United Kingdom decided to leave the European Union by a majority vote because they were convinced that the strengthening of European integration would harm the national interests of the state. The concept of Brexit contains a complex structure that allows for different interpretations from the perspective of the evaluative component, as well as many metaphors with opposite connotations. It is not surprising that previous prime ministers such as David Cameron and Theresa May also included it in modern political discourse. It became a kind of frontier that changed the British perceptions of their own identity, foreign policy tasks of their state, and its role in the global world. The methodology of my report, my article, includes cognitive conception of metaphors in public speeches. This theory was invented by Lakoff and Johnson, and it helps to explain the mechanism of structuring cognitive experience. In the interpretation of the essential component of Boris Johnson's speech, specificity, cognitive and autopotentic approaches were used, which classify the basis concept on which his political discourse was built. Next, we must explore the main components of such concept as global Britain, and this concept can be created as an ontological metaphor. Through it, in the form of personification, the addressee expresses his attitude to the modern global changes. In one of his speeches, Boris Johnson dedicated to the victory of the Conservative Party in the general parliamentary election in December 2019. Johnson again emphasized that British are a united nation that will move towards prosperity. The United Kingdom acts in Boris Johnson's speeches as a home for the people living in it, the most important and universal cultural concept in the human mind. The metaphorical representation of social realities and processes as a home remains one of the most traditional images for political speech. Home for Englishmen is the embodiment of his principle of privacy, his individuality, and an indicator of status. Thus, the Prime Minister focused the public attention on an important component of the national culture. My home is my fortress. In his political rhetoric, Johnson actively used a combination of professionally marked and situationally conditioned statements in order to simultaneously convince the audience of his competence and awareness in the field of social and political processes and create confidence in it using phrases from everyday vocabulary. This technique was perfect for the 29 Conservative Party campaign and for lobbying its interests in the British Parliament. To emphasize the need for Brexit for the United Kingdom, its historical inevitability and conditionality, Johnson uses the model life is theatre that often appears in modern political discourse. Theatrical metaphor is very characteristic for British literature, referring to the days of Shakespeare and his tragedy Macbeth. Over time, it became firmly rooted in the sphere of political lexicon. In conclusion, I want to say that political discourse of Boris Johnson have a bright emotional coloring and an increased degree of influence on the mass addressee in the political context of Brexit. Boris Johnson's political discourse seriously influenced the British rethinking of the role of their country in modern geopolitics, paved the way for the final exit of Great Britain from the European Union and the search for alternative ways of development. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, write in our chat. And now we'd like to invite Michael Zagorniak, Emmanuel Kent Baltic Federal University, please.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for time for my report. Now I want to talk about subordinate and sociability, synonymity in George Gurevich treatment of social cohesion. Now my report is in the philosophical sphere, and I'm not a professional translator. So I want to talk about two notions of George Gurevich in Russian and French. I think that notions subordinate and sociability is equivalent terms, and now I want to make a report why I think this is true. So next words about George Gurevich. George Gurevich is Russian first wave immigrant philosopher and one of the founders of French sociology of law. In the first part of 20th century, he formulated his concept of social law and propounded it in the Russian immigrant periodicals as well as in French language publications. Gurevich studies the effect of legal pluralism in society and the problem of social cohesion. In his Russian language works, an essential term to convey the idea of social unity is subordinate. But in his French language publications, he used the term sociability or sociabilité in French. So I get a comparing the ideas, and now I think Gurevich explores the ideas of social law in different languages. Yet he used the same model to substantiate his approach. Similarities in Gurevich's argumentation urge the ventured hypothesis that the same ideas can be presented in different languages. The methods of comparison and correlation analysis will be employed to confirm it. Testing the hypothesis will show the degree of synonymity between the notions of subordinate and sociability and help establish whether the findings can be used in cross-cultural studies. The meanings of sociability and subordinate in Gurevich's works on social work will be compared. So I done two points in my investigation. I analyzing the meanings of sociability and subordinate in Gurevich French language and Russian language works, about social law, and I investigate whether their findings about Gurvich ideas of social law can be extrapolated to cross-cultural studies. So, in his treatment of social law, Gurvich conceptualized the problem of attaining social cohesion as that of social communications. All disagreements between individual social institutions, organizations, and communities must be overcome. Society must function as a single whole. Social cohesion can be achieved on the plane of the law in the form of social order, which embodies the idea of justice. Justice is a vehicle that allows individuals to identify themselves as participants in society and find their place in it. Justice helps individuals understand what their place in society is and what place of others are. It is used as a frame of reference to identify the direction of interactions between people and social formations. Self-fulfillment of individuals is impossible unless they see themselves as the participants in various social formations. Moreover, self-fulfillment ensures that individuals stay connected to society. The law facilitates social cohesion, but it does so only when social expansion takes place, when any social regulation is perceived as the law. In Gurvich's interpretation, the state is denied the monopoly of legislation. He develops that concept of legal pluralism, which in the legal counterpart of value pluralism, the multitude of ways for individuals to achieve self-fulfillment in culture. Legal pluralism translates in a great diversity of social formations, so it may be communities, organizations, or some institutions, which in its turn opens greater opportunities for creativity and self-fulfillment. The harmonization of interests and therefore relations between social agents is a continuous process, and social law offers the most rapid path to social cohesion. Gurvich calls social law the autonomous right of communion, or the right of sovereignty, to get a sovereignty. So I think Gurvich not only translates sovereignty like sociability, but he think that he used these terms as equivalence notions to explain his ideas about social law.
Michael, some words in conclusion. In conclusion, some words.
Sorry.
Time.
This topic is not good investigate in Russian or French scientific sphere, and I think it's a good point for my or maybe another scientific
Okay, I see your point, but maybe to
study
understand
more.
We have maybe to read your full article's text. So thank you very much. I apologize. The next, can I hear Yelena Shanko for the next presentation, please.
Hello for all. Dear moderators, I am very grateful for the opportunity to speak in this conference, and I should talk in Russian. Итак, мое выступление посвящено проблеме формирования дискурсивной социокультурной компетентности. В первую очередь хотелось бы сказать, что само явление компетентности основательно вошло в нашу жизнь, и свидетельство тому, что вот это понятие описано практически всеми гуманитарными науками, что говорит, собственно, о всеобщности вот данного социального процесса и междисциплинарности понятия. Вот. И, собственно, именно вот этот аспект, именно вот эта вот междисциплинарная проявленность, вот она позволяет мне, социологу, вот участвовать сегодня в такой вот лингвистической по своей сути конференции. Итак, в обучении иностранным языкам дискурсивная социокультурная компетентность подразумевает способность осуществления всех видов вот, иноязычной речевой деятельности при наличии соответствующих знаний, то есть социальной, культурной и страноведческой направленности. Вот. Фактически это означает, что носитель языка знает культурные особенности носителей другого языка, из другой культуры, их привычек, традиций, норм поведения и этикета, умеет понимать и адекватно использовать вот этот вот весь комплекс в процессе общения, в дискурсе, оставаясь при этом носителем другой культуры. Вот. И вместе с тем происходит интеграция личности в системе как национальной, так и мировой культур. Вот. И поскольку понятие коммуникативной компетентности, как я уже сказала в начале, является междисциплинарным, то включение в данное понимание вот, дискурсивной социокультурной компетентности, вот в это понимание социологического компонента, может способствовать уточнению признаков вот, дискурсивной социокультурной компетентности, а также пути формирования данной компетентности и механизмы, уточнить механизмы интеграции личности в систему мировой и национальной культур. Итак, о самой концепции социологической. Предлагаемый социологический подход рассматривает коммуникативную компетентность с позиции социальных условий ее функционирования, то есть в изменяющейся социальной реальности, что означает деятельность индивида не из объективной действительности, а из той субъективной реальности, которая формируется у каждого актора индивидуально и под влиянием его повседневного жизненного опыта, его повседневных жизненных практик в ходе взаимодействия с другим. Вот данная концепция опирается на феноменологическую теорию австрийского философа и социолога Альфреда Шутца, вот, развитую американскими уже социологами Томасом Локманом и Питером Бергером уже в 20 веке, вот, и представляющую основу научного направления Центра социологии молодежи в Институте социально-политических исследований Российской академии наук, вот, собственно, держателями вот и продолжателями этой концепции являются Зубок Юлия Альбертовна и Чупров Владимир Ильич. Социальная реальность не является некой константой, вот, а коммуникативная компетентность, как являющаяся частью реальности индивида, так и обеспечивающая его взаимодействие с другим и построение социальной связи, уже в объективной реальности, вот, как бы функционируют именно в залоге социальной реальности. Изменение реальности является имманентным свойством вот этого явления. И вследствие этого коммуникация постоянно подвергается переконструированию, а коммуникативная компетентность является таким образом объектом саморегуляции индивида. И исходя вот из данного понимания, из данной взаимосвязи коммуникативной компетентности и социальной реальности, изменяющейся, следует такое вот определение коммуникативной компетентности. Она понимается как способность личности обеспечивать свои социальные связи в условиях изменяющейся социальной реальности посредством подвижности ценностей, конструирования гибких индивидуализированных норм коммуникации, владения вариативными умениями коммуникации и способами поведения. Далее следует сказать, что вот указанные в определении компоненты, то есть ценностно-нормативный контур, умения, навыки и поведенческие паттерны формируются под воздействием как институциональных, так и социокультурных механизмов. Социокультурные механизмы представляют собой очень широкий контекст и определяются как бессознательные структуры в сознании индивида. И это могут быть как ментальные установки, так и коллективные архетипы, габитусы, стереотипы. Они могут подвергаться рефлексии и являются основой саморегуляции в условиях, когда институциональные статусно-ролевые механизмы не оказывают решающего влияния на ценностно-нормативный контур коммуникативной компетентности. Вот примером такого вот включения социокультурного механизма в коммуникативную компетентность вот, может быть виртуальная реальность, вот, где институциональные механизмы оказываются сниженными. В условиях современного сложного общества, содержащего как раз разные по ценностно-нормативной направленности социокультурные среды, в которых востребованы разные по характеру, по направленности, умения, способы поведения и разные социокультурные механизмы регулируют коммуникативную компетентность. То есть здесь коммуникативная компетентность характеризуется таким свойством, как гибридность, а личность изменяющейся социальной реальностью. Вот. И гибридность, саморегуляция, переконструирование являются теми особенностями в коммуникативной компетентности, которые определяют эффективность индивида в социальной жизни, в такой социальной жизни, где постоянно изменяются параметры этой жизни и, собственно, структуры такой социальной жизни являются гибкими достаточно. Вот, и, по-видимому, то есть можно сделать такой перенос, так достаточно уверенно, что нахождение индивида в разных языковых средах, то есть родной и иноязычной, с различающимися социальным, культурным, лингвистическим, дискурсивным компонентами, представляют собой сложное общество, существующее в социальной реальности индивида. И изменяющаяся под влиянием взаимодействия с носителями разных языков социальная реальность индивида способствует формированию вот, в структуре его коммуникативной компетентности пластичных ценностей, гибких норм, вариативности умений и способов поведения. И, следовательно, эффективная коммуникация индивида в разных языковых средах обеспечивается разными типами коммуникативной компетентности, взаимодополняющими друг друга и создающими качество гибридности. Вот, собственно, вот это как бы основание является как раз механизмом интеграции индивида в национальную и мировую культуру, а также, что не менее важно, механизмом интеграции самих культур. Вот. То есть вот эти обстоятельства, как результат анализа коммуникативной компетентности как социологического понятия, вот, на наш взгляд, позволяют учесть механизмы формирования вот, социокультурной дискурсивной коммуникативной компетентности вот, в аспекте интеграции национальных культур в общемировую, и, собственно, носители и пользователи родного и иностранных языков, собственно, этому очень способствуют. Спасибо за внимание. Thank you for attention.
Спасибо большое за ваше участие. Будем приглашать
Машину Викторию, пожалуйста.
Машину Викторию, да.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. May I please ask you to bring up my presentation? Prior to the conference opening, I sent it to you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now I hope we can all see it. Right. Well, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you so very much for your invitation to present at this conference today. I appreciate the chance to be part of this multicultural and multidimensional professional community. What I will do today is focus on the analysis of the linguistic perception of plagiarism as a constituent element of the umbrella concept of academic integrity. Certain attention will be given to how contemporary scholars address the notion of textual plagiarism in second language learning. Right. And I will also look at recent research studies related to the terminological distinctions between intentional and unintentional plagiarism when considering pedagogical approaches to preventing cheating. One big question that arises is, why do our students cheat? And even more importantly, what can we do to prevent it? The educational context suggests that plagiarism-related practices in LT writing can be largely eliminated by actively encouraging students to engage with relevant academic sources and by developing their information searching and library skills. It is argued that one of the ways to lessen the risk of plagiarism is to raise learners' awareness of academic literacy skills in textual appropriation strategies, and in doing so, to encourage students' independence. Investigating the problem of plagiarism is a crucial element in an attempt to understand a range of cognitive and social reasons behind ESL students' transgressive textual appropriation, defined as student source use that contravenes acceptable borrowing practices. Given that plagiarism is a very broad phenomenon, extensive scientific research on this very topic is undertaken in various fields, including literature, applied linguistics, art, music, second language acquisition, of course. Irrespective of the subject area, plagiarism is commonly described as theft, by copying the words or ideas of someone else and passing them off as one's own without crediting the original source. Educators tend to agree that the process of plagiarism recognition in L2 writing may become a rather complicated and difficult task, particularly when novice writers have no intention to plagiarize. And sometimes they indeed don't. Concerns have been raised around unintentional plagiarism being treated as a form of deliberate cheating, leading to proposals for separating these types of source use practices. Patch writing, the well-known term that we have for unintentional plagiarism, was first introduced by Howard in the year 1999 and defined as copying from a source text and then deleting certain words, altering grammatical structures, or plugging in one synonym for another. Building upon Howard's work, another interested in this field scholar, Picorari, puts forward a two-level typology of plagiarism, with textual plagiarism defined as the use of words and or ideas from another source without appropriate attribution. The cited paper further divides the concept of textual plagiarism into two subtypes: prototypical plagiarism, where intention to deceive is present, and patch writing, where no such intention exists. Even so, not yet, please. Could you kindly go back to the previous slide? Thank you. Even so, unwitting plagiarism is nevertheless treated as a serious error, and one which postgraduate students are advised to avoid by a very careful scrutiny of existing publications on the topic. Paying tribute to the reliability of plagiarism detection software, it is not the only method to help deal with plagiarism. Other methods include taking preventative measures, such as trying out various pedagogical approaches aimed to facilitate students' understanding of L2 writing strategies. And of course, being aware of scientific and academic writing challenges. Such preventative measures can include a multitude of various strategies, from implementing modules designed to provide students with the study skills to designing special courses, modules, and assignments aimed to reduce the possibility of plagiarism. Now, may I please ask you to go to the next slide. The findings of this very study reveal the meaning of plagiarism and attitudes towards plagiarism-related practices, as investigated by means of an online survey which involved undergraduate students of 3 Moscow universities, including Moscow City Pedagogical University Higher School of Economics and People's Friendship University of Russia. The paper analyzes student responses to the causes of plagiarism in higher education, as well as their perception of the suggested ways to prevent academic misconduct. Well, I do not know whether the organizers have shared the table presenting the questions used in the survey together with the research objectives and expectations, but I also sent it to the moderators earlier. If not, I might right now upload them into the chat section of our meeting. Well, now it's opening and I hope it will work out. Right. Well, yes, thank you so much. I have also shared the support material, the chart with the survey questions and the objectives, together with the expectations via the chat of the current meeting. Could I please ask you to bring back the presentation so that we could continue? Right. Right, thank you so much. Well, the opening question of the survey aimed at eliciting the participants' ideas about plagiarism. The results reveal that students' perception of this form of academic misconduct does not dramatically differ from its conventional interpretation. The responses varied in length from one-word reactions, such as cheating, to much longer answers, demonstrating a deeper comprehension of the subject. And all of them are summarized and presented right here. You can see them on your screen. Well, a sound understanding of plagiarism by students manifested itself in the following beliefs: presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement, or also attribution of authorship of texts that do not belong to you. Almost all respondents mentioned copying ideas and thoughts, taking someone else's work, an act of stealing somebody's ideas. Are the popular responses to the meaning of plagiarism. More than 50% of the respondents included without author's permission, without reference, deliberately, as your own, some added intentional theft because of laziness, inefficient time management, and some other reactions. Now, could I please ask you to change the slide? The next one, please. The following question of the survey aimed to assess students' attitude to the problem of plagiarism. Overall, the graph highlights the evidence that the large majority of undergraduate students recognize the seriousness of plagiarism and its impact on a researcher's reputation, 58.3%, while 31.7% of respondents maintain that plagiarism is a common example of academic misconduct. Admittedly, and sadly enough, I would say, some 5% of the replies identify plagiarism as a rather permissible academic practice. Next slide, please. Another objective of the survey was to assess the degree of respondents' satisfaction with the university plagiarism policy. The vast majority of the undergraduate students, around 60%, turned out to be largely satisfied with it. Still, the replies report an objective necessity to further promote the values of academic integrity and raise students' awareness of academic literacy skills and textual borrowing strategies such as summarizing, paraphrasing, evaluating information. Some 31.7% of the participants share the same ethics and are taught how to work with sources and incorporate the words and ideas of others in the proper way at their departments. The chart shows that 8.3% of the respondents expressed dissatisfaction with their university plagiarism policy and claimed that there is a desperate need to engage students in workshops on scholarly academic writing and give them clear instructions on how to avoid plagiarism. Well, next slide, please. Among the most relevant causes of plagiarism among students, the participants mentioned difficulty thinking for themselves and creating their own ideas in the first place. The number 2 position was shared by unawareness of academic literacy skills and textual borrowing strategies, and getting high scores at any cost. Almost 60% of the respondents demonstrated this very reaction. Surprisingly enough, the latter was not included into the research expectations. Also, plagiarism among students may be rooted in poor time management and not understanding the assessment. Next slide, please. In line with research expectations, some students admitted to having insufficient knowledge of acceptable strategies for paraphrasing and incorporating the ideas of others, and a lax approach to citing sources. Thus, 40% of the respondents may copy and paste words and ideas written by someone else into their papers and simply add citation marks, while 31.7% reported changing the grammar of the original source or restating some ideas in different words without reference to the original source. At the same time, the absolute majority of the participants always include the cited source. Now, could we please move to the next slide? As we can see from figure 5, a significant number of undergraduates do not fully comprehend what constitutes plagiarism. One of all the respondents surveyed, half of them defined substituted synonyms in certain places as appropriate paraphrase of the original source, while 11.7% and 36.7% of the respondents respectively said that the same exact sentence structure and key phrases borrowed directly from the original source might be recognized as accepted examples of textual behavior. And now let us please move on to the last question of the survey, and next slide please, which asked the participants to paraphrase the given excerpt in about the same length of the original text. The students were encouraged to use synonyms to change the sentence structure, the voice and the parts of speech where appropriate without copying the exact wording of the original text. Pursuant to the research expectations, a much smaller sample from the same group of the respondents, around 18% only, attempted to fulfill the task given. It should be noted that in numerous cases the variants that the students provided can be interpreted as possible cases of plagiarism, while some demonstrated a rather wide range of lexis, grammar, and academic repertoire when working with the original source. And the latter case is demonstrated in the following table. Let us try to see why it is acceptable. So in this very positive case, the respondent demonstrated credit both to the author of the cited text and the source mentioned in the original. Let us look at the way he or she did it. In the article published in, and the source is provided, Dr. Thompson develops a certain idea, and again, some credit is given to the author of the idea being cited, and the use of the lexical repertoire is also rather appropriate. The writer changed parts of speech, the sentence structures, used synonyms, put the information in their own words. So, where does this evidence take us? I have to say that contributing to a probably better understanding of plagiarism-related practices in Russian, in the Russian higher educational context, the research arrives at somewhat ambiguous results. The key statistics reveal that being fully aware of the meaning and the notion of plagiarism, most respondents still tend to misinterpret some crucial standards of acceptable textual behavior, such as citing sources and incorporating the ideas of others. The significant difference between the percent of the respondents who are aware of academic literacy skills and those who are ready to apply their skills might be seen as a cause for growing concern. The questionnaire responses highlight the further need for more information to be available to undergraduate students about academic literacy skills and textual borrowing strategies, such as summarizing, paraphrasing, and evaluating information. The key issues may need to be addressed in the process of developing university courses and modules aimed at facilitating students' academic writing. And actually, the practical input of this very survey is that its results will later be interwoven into a course which will be tailor-made in order to especially meet the needs of undergraduate bachelor students at Moscow City University. And as a supervisor of theses done by undergraduate students, I can surely say that despite their burning desire to delve into the scholarly world, into the world of scholarly writing, sometimes they have certain difficulty finding the appropriate words to do so and to communicate their ideas. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. The cited works can be seen on the second to last slide. And thank you so very much for your attention. Thank you.
Victoria, it is a great pleasure to listen to you in English, really. Thanks a lot.
Thank
you. And we have two participants.
Yes, maybe we will take a little bit from the second session. So we'd like to hear Igor Shkrotek.
Yes, I am. I am here. So I very glad to perform on this conference. And it's a great honor for me, and my perform is about the Navy as an element of preserving national identity in the UK. We all know that UK Navy have a huge role in British culture, in British history, British economy, and foreign policy. Maybe someone like, for example, Columb, for example, Mackinder, speak about the British Navy is one of the top of fundament British Great Britain, and this role was one of the most huge in British history. Today, we can see a conflict in British Navy, in the British Navy and British society, between British society and British defense policy. Very many years in modern history, we have we can see that British Navy was the last stand of British defense policy, because it is only part where didn't some sequestering and someone reforming traditions and functions was one of the most highest level, not only in Europe, in the world too. And today we have a time of reforming British defense, and today due to UK Navy role in British defense would be reforming, and today we have a conflict between liberal view to defense systems and defense policy and conservative view to this policy and these systems. And Navy role in the culture, in economic, in science, in policy, and other can made some influence to decision of this question in British policy. Today we have all specialists in British defense weighted British Defense Review in this year, but from Corona crisis, we don't take this document to analyze and to read, and we are all wait some decision from Boris Johnson and his government for reforming defense policy today. And this is one of the most important point in British defense history, in British foreign history and other. And today we have a we have one of the most the most important point in this history. And today we are all waited some decision from British government from these decisions depend next development of United Kingdom Navy and his influence and his role in British culture, social, and some economy positions, and that is all, I think.
Thank you, Igor. Thank you. And the last, our participant, Andrei Levitsky.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to take part in the work of this conference. Could you share my presentation with the rest of the audience? Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm going to deal today with the key concepts of Yakima fairy tales viewed by the Russian mind, as I call it. And I'm going to share my experience with you. I was invited to read lectures at the Heritage University in the state of Washington, just the place where Yakima people live, Native Americans. And just as a kind of introduction, I wanted to share with you some of the pictures I made there, just the carpets and the tapestry of Yakima Nation. Could you move to the next slide, please? Just the first slides would show you just the culture, some of the cultural products of Yakima Nation nowadays, as we see them. The next one, please. There's a couple of them. And could you share? Yeah, just like some most favored motives in Yakima culture. Yeah, the next one as well. Just a couple of slides as a kind of an introduction to show you the variability of the culture and the richness of the culture of Native Americans. Could you move to the next slide, please? Okay, and still the next one. Yes, so local students speaking and some of the artifacts. There's a couple of the slides up to the objectives. Since we are going to deal with just before the objectives, right? Just like some of the pictures, and all those pictures were made in the campus. Well, you see the territory. Just could you move to the slide where the environment is shown after the library? Okay. Or probably you see that in here, and that would be enough. You get some impression of the territory, which is very specific. In fact, yes, thank you very much. It's the state of Washington, the southern part of the state. We move to the next slide. And there's another picture, just a fir tree, which is a very good symbol of American Indians there, Native Americans there. And yes, if you move to the next slide, you see also just some leaflets and some pictures shared by the Native American community with the students of this university, because not only Native Americans study that, though it's minority Soviet institution, but not only Native Americans get their education. Go to the next slide, please. And you see the some of the landscape of Tapanish, just the place where the Heritage University is situated. Yes, and here you see just the class in Shahaptin. That's the official title of this language, of their native language in English, and they call it Ichishkin. And he's a teacher. This young gentleman is a teacher. He's just defended his thesis, and here are some. Okay, it's okay. You see some of the alphabets, well, of the Yakima people. and their mother tongue, which they call Ichishkin. That young gentleman performs the classes in this language, and not only students but local people also can get there. There's a study in the university, and also you see some national emblems there, and some pictures related to the life of Yakima people. And if we move to the next slide, we see also the pictures which are here. And yes, and it brings me to the objectives. I wish I could share you the picture with the mountains, because there's the one of the mountains there, which is considered to be the sacred one. Yes, right. Just picture 7. And picture 7, you see just the landscape with the mountains which are very far away. And one of them is considered to be the sacred one. It's just over there. It's, if we translate its name into English, it sounds like he is the first who sees the sun. If we visit the campus of the Heritage University, we see only 1-story building or 2-story buildings, you know, you can't get more than 2-story there, because otherwise you will be prevented from seeing that sacred mountain. Anyway, as for the objectives and purpose of this study, I'd love to point out that the aim of the research consists in the determination of key features of Indian conceptual worldview, reflected in Yakima fairy tales. The collection of those fairy tales was published a couple of years ago, some of them, and some of the publications were presented in 80s due to the pains of Donald Haynes. He, with Virginia Beavert, who's one of the Yakima people, they both do a lot to popularize the culture of Yakima people, because Ichishkin was absolutely lost for some decades. You know, well, people, white people who came to the Yakima place, they exterminated majority of population, but the rest of the population started to live in the reservation.
Andrei, I'm very sorry for interrupting, but we have no time.
Yes, I understand. I understand. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, I just analyzed the texts of those collections and found out the main concepts there. Main concepts are related to the time, and time in Yakima people deals with basically the lunar calendar. Then they also use a hand, like to show the time, where time goes to the future or to the past, basically. Then they count the year in winters, which is very peculiar for me, and days and nights with the sleeps. As for the space, so they, according to Virginia Beavert, who's just one of those people, she that space as continuous area, and it expands, and it's not occupied, and place is basically mountainous, because the territory they live in is a lot of mountains, and there are a couple of volcanoes there, and that is very typical of this nation. And as for flora and fauna, just the most favorite flowers are buttercups there. They use a lot of herbs, specific herbs in medicine. As for other aspects of flora, so they use a lot of huckleberries, cranberries, and as for the animals, they just kind of worship coyote. Coyote, though he is a trickster in the fairy tales, but he embodies all the features that are very much cherished by Yakima Nation. Thank you very much. I could say more probably next time.
Thank you, Andrei. It was very interesting, really. And, you know, our session was a unique opportunity to meet face-to-face with colleagues from different places, from different parts of the world. Thank you. And now time is over, unfortunately. We wish you good luck and invite to the session number 2. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.